childhood. I spent part of my early childhood in the vibrant and cultural city of Gujarat. Email exchange and calls and everything happening, discussions, forums with this. Actually, it's hard to tell one, but I think all of the projects I touched base with and I was roped in to be a part of, there was immense value that I could deliver and I could feel it for myself. There is a space which warmly welcomes them. The choice of materials is very warm, which keeps your sensory organs very relaxed. And you have to make some hard decisions, so you need to be very, very calm and relaxed and not anxious and not getting worked out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, a podcast series by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. My name is Rajesh Joshi, and today we are thrilled to have a very special guest with us. Joining us is a true visionary in the world of design, a leader who has redefined spaces and brought life to some of the most renowned healthcare facilities across the country. With over 2 decades of experience in architecture and design, she has transformed both residential and corporate landscapes with her remarkable skill set and strategic approach. Architect Lavlina Joshi's name is synonymous with cutting edge design and transformative architecture, but there is so much more to her story. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Joshi, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders. We are excited to dive into your journey and uncover some of the incredible insights you have to share.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and talking about my journey on this WDC forum.
Well, the pleasure is all ours, ma'am. I have always found that the most interesting journeys are the ones that aren't always linear. So, to start this conversation, when I look at your career, I am amazed by how your expertise in design has transformed spaces that touch so many lives, especially in healthcare. But before all that, I'm curious. What was the moment or experience early in your life that sparked your passion for design and architecture? Was there a specific turning point that led you down this incredible path?
Oh yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, as I recall in my childhood, I spent part of my early childhood in the vibrant and cultural city of Gujarat.
Mhm.
So while growing up, we used to visit all these marvelous architectural monuments, grandeur in scale and almost like mesmerizing, around the city. So be it like Somnath Temple, which is also one of the 12 Jyotirlings, or Rani Kawab, and there was this Dew Fort, which overlooks the ocean, and it is as a child, especially, you really are like you are wondering, that what am I seeing? Where am I? And then, what is this majestic thing all about? And the kind of emotions it evokes and the kind of wonder it's very fascinating. And also the residential contour there was also very appealing and very pleasant to look at. So while growing up, I drew I sort of developed a natural affinity towards all these monuments and scales, and the appeal and the connotation it kind of resonated with. Also, I think there was a time when so we were the only ones who were located in the West Zone, and most of our extended family was in North Zone. So in our endeavor to make that transition to the North Zone, my father was almost missing for a year and a half. Because we had got a land here and he was building a house, and I used to often ask my mom, what is happening, and the long distance calls on okay, this space and that space and this material, and okay, this is how we can go about it. So I think that also developed and fostered my curiosity into this kind of world. And last but not the least, my maternal side grandparents, they were also in this lineage, like little bit. So there were
Mhm.
three brothers. One was chief conservator forest, so he was any which ways dealing in lands and all those orchid yards and stuff when we used to visit them in vacation times. And the other one was in army, so he retired as brigadier, but he was a doctor, in medicine in the army. So he was actually I think so. Now when I look back, I see the resonance and the healthcare segment coming, maybe getting inspired from there. He was almost treated like a god, because the cases that you deal with in army, are very different than the normal civilian cases. And then the third one was, because both the brothers were into this segment. He was a civil engineer and he got into construction, and he was doing, military services, construction works, like wherever the base and headquarters were located. So he actually, in that time, he built like quite many, highways and airports, in rocky terrains. And yeah, so when I was a medical student with maths, actually. Both my parents are science background. So they had their own plans to send me either, into medicine or like engineering. But I had honestly no interest into doing either of them. So when my preparing towards my entrance exams and everything, I remember meeting a family friend just like that on a casual meeting, and she had actually, the eldest one had done her architecture in that time, and that was a time when not many people were choosing this profession. Like, it was on a minimal scale, and especially girls, so it is largely still a male-dominated industry. But hearing her story and her experience, and when she started to practice it, I think it somewhere influenced me a lot, and it was that missing gap that I was looking and trying to figure out, and suddenly the whole story and the whole dots got connected, and I think eventually it led me this path, is what I can think of.
Wow, wow, wow. It is incredible how early childhood experiences and
Yeah.
actually visual experiences, Indian architecture definitely is mesmerizing. And I'm glad that you found your calling eventually when you met those family friends of yours. That's really absolutely wonderful, and it's a wonderful start to the conversation, I must say, which actually immediately takes me to the next question, where over the course of your impressive two-decade career, you've conceptualized and designed numerous spaces and buildings, collaborating with large architectural consultancy firms and working closely with international firms on significant large-scale projects for major corporate setups. How do you feel these two distinct worlds have shaped your professional journey? Could you share a specific example where this unique blend of experiences added significant value to the projects you worked on and helped stakeholders make more informed decisions?
Oh yeah. So definitely, I think there was no storyline to it, but as life would take you through different contours and journeys. I started my career with a very legendary and very renowned architect. One of my seniors from college was had worked there, so he recommended. And when I met him, like it was so wonderful. He was a Harvard graduate, and he had passed from CEPT, which is a known college, and he was a visiting faculty in SPA, and he had worked with one of the world's largest architectural organizations, SOM, that time. So and he was doing wonderful work. So one meeting with him was enough for me to sort of get like really excited to be starting my career with him. Mr. Abhimanyu Dalal, uh, and then I recall, like, so the child who used to wonder about the grandeur of scales and the residences and all of that. So he does some very, very wonderful residences for, celebrity industrialist people. And he does some wonderful work for the cityscape and, like, for the capital as well. So, I landed myself in that, and having so much knowledge and so much exposure that he had, it was so natural to sort of brush it off upon us when you get start to train under these significant like senior and veterans in the industry. So it had a huge starting point for me, and my fundamentals of design and my basics got so really thoroughly sort of worked out. And I was also cautioned, that he was really tough taskmaster also. So it's really not very easy for youngsters, especially to kind of be able to thrive to for a longer time. If you can pass like 1 year also, that's considered like, great. So I was able to actually complete two, and like, he was very fond of me, and we worked on many, many, spaces, offices. So the whole experience came out wonderfully for me in my initial, career journey. And then I went on to do some great interior architecture with this another renowned firm, Lotus Design. So that
Mhm.
today it's like that time, fortunately, it was just a close-knit team of, around 15, 16 people. So we actually had the opportunity to carve out and curate each space, like, with so much thoughtfulness and so much detailing and so much brainstorming going into the process of designing, uh, you know. And today they are like 100 plus, and they are on the world list of architectural firms. So I just feel blessed, like, to be able to have my initial formative years, trained under these wonderful mentees, and who had so much already established for themselves in the industry, that it just brushes off to you, and you inherit that legacy and that brilliance and carry it forward. And then, I had a quest for large scale projects, like, so as I moved on in my journey, I landed with this firm, which was again a very great organization, which was, so one of the founders was actually, who had worked with old time legendary architect Raj Rival for almost 20 years, like, and the other was in healthcare expert, and the other was in building bylaws and, compliances and everything. And then there were four directors, four co-founders. So the other one was in technology, so BIM and AI. They were doing a lot of international exchange programs. So, it was like a multifold experience of all these different genres, which actually constitute brilliant projects, because all of this goes into your project planning, from compliances, bylaws to software technology to, of course, that's where my healthcare expedition kind of took, it took up, and it started from there. And suddenly, as the universe would hear your calling and, get you into position, like, get you into roles where you could accomplish that. I suddenly found myself doing this, so we were doing this project. Within a month or so, they saw leadership skills in me, and they put me on to the largest projects. And, there was email exchange and calls and everything happening, discussions, forums with this Fortune 500, I wouldn't name it, but like a mega giant company, whose office complex was coming up in Seattle. So we were really like, thoroughly brainstorming on that. And I had such insights to give them, that they actually gave us more work, that there's a very intelligent team sitting there, and we can use, not just designing and development of the conceptual designs, but they gave us. I was commenting, and, I was sort of putting it, detecting like how the bylaws are missing in the, in incorporation of the design, the fire norms and so many things. So I actually studied, those bylaws in their thing. So I remember one of the partners, when he visited India, Mark Fosso, he asked me that, how is it that you are able to correlate, sitting in India in this context of the space, like, the kind of vocabulary that we are using there in the bylaws. So prompt was my response, that well, the fundamentals are the same everywhere. Like, you could be anywhere in the world, but the basics of design, fundamental principles of this industry, they're a constant. And he just smiled, and we had a great, time working on that project. Then there was a housing complex, and this project was almost like 1.6 million square feet. Like, so maybe
Mhm.
1.6 million square feet. Yeah. So huge for me, who was doing residences and offices and retail and, all of that. That was also interesting work. And this was another level to it. And then housing in Salt Lake City, and like, actually Portland Airport also. Like, so many different kind of projects in Children Memorial Hospital. Yeah, so and then the recession came, I think 2008 and 2009, and that's when, like, we had to sort of look a hard look, and we said that, okay, that's when, again, as a founding a core team member, with the co-founders, we sort of did our first healthcare project in almost 2009, yeah, 2009, 10, which was for Sterling Group of Hospitals. So it was a very interesting phase where, one could put all my design development skills into conceptualizing and designing this hospital, along with the founder members. So
Right, right.
yeah, the healthcare journey started from there, and there was no looking back. So, right from area charts to space programs to layouts to, taking it through, from concept to fruition to interiors to completion. It was a great, and suddenly you were, sitting in a forum where there were clinicians, there were medical staff, top stakeholders. And then, a long story short, like, down the lane, after doing so many hospitals, which entailed, hospitals in Bhutan, Nepal, Gujarat, where my roots started from. The last assignment I did with them was the Medics Apollo Hospital, which was a three-bedded hospital.
uh, Wherein I have noticed that throughout your career, you have embraced a wide range of multidisciplinary work from residential to retail, corporate, and especially in the healthcare sector. I am curious, has there been a strategic approach behind this diverse portfolio, or do you enjoy experimenting with different sectors before eventually specializing in one? The reason I kind of interrupted you
Yeah.
was because I actually got curious that is it fortune favors the brave and initiated kind of a
Mhm.
story, or was there some kind of a strategy here? I would love to hear your thoughts on how you've navigated this broad spectrum of projects.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Like I said, that it's just like you plant a wish in the universe, and the universe sort of starts to make it happening, like Shah Rukh Khan says. No strategy. It was just my love for architecture and design that kept taking me through different modules and different journeys, I would say. Medics Apollo happened. Paras High collaboration in Patna. That was also 350 bedded hospital. That happened. Then Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Center was coming up. So it was very interesting. And by that time, I had trained myself to. So my boss used to pick me up for the toughest client. Like okay, like send her there. And I remember meeting this lady who was not approving designs, like, so to say. So when I met her, we ended up having such lengthy conversations. So there's also, alongside being a good and thorough professional, there's a personal touch, that also plays a very important role in all the dialogues that you make throughout your personal and professional journey. So I was able to make good contact, a good camaraderie and good bondage with everybody. I think I worked with, even the clients and everyone. So, next, when Max Healthcare happened, which was again a unknown terrain, like I was just, and I had honestly no idea what was I going, suddenly coming from this consultancy background to this hardcore corporate sector, how am I be able to contribute significantly, because I had worked closely with the top guys. So just when I was contemplating that, and thinking that, okay, let me experiment for 3 months, like, I didn't know that that journey is going to unfold another decade. So 1 decade of consultancy, another decade of, in the corporate sector. I would say
Absolutely.
that when I look back, it was a wonderful journey. I think in terms, within 2 months, I think things started to unfold. We were having some mega deals. The very first project, and I think I'm going to take a little time of yours to sort of, tell a bit about it. This is all
Please.
about my. So the first project, that time I remember the chairman, Mr. Anarjit Singh was sort of distancing and focusing more on the overseas properties. So it was a very new team that was put together, like the top management, and my boss had joined a few months back, and then I joined, and one more person, and we had to deliver the first. So it was like the first baby project, like that was going to be observed keenly. That okay, what have you done behind my back, and like so it was, and we were also looking at, we had the strategy people wanted to do something together, like, as a core team, we wanted to do something which was very transformative. So we actually experiment a lot, and we got some young guys on board who were like, who had like a freshness of ideas, and we
Mhm.
established our first cancer care center in Lajpat Nagar, which was, really appreciated. And you're doing late night calls and long hours and running for morning meetings, site meetings, mock-ups, approvals, and then the whole onus lies on the infrastructure team to sort of deliver it on time, like, so everybody is looking at you, and you are amidst this whole chaos where, like, it's like a movie being made, and only at the launch time everybody will get to see, like, what have you done. And it was of great value. And coming from the consultancy times, everything was quick on my decision making, in terms of explaining, in terms of developing, in terms of making side decisions, in terms of sketching things out. So all of that came very handy. So there was a lot of appreciation for that. And then then the Max Smart land deal happened, and we We were suddenly doing the biggest and the largest, project planning, and international guys were roped in.
On the MaxSmart, I would like you to actually elaborate more in detail because apparently
Yeah.
leading the design of the MaxSmart Super Specialty Hospital must have been a journey filled with challenges but also incredible rewards. I can only imagine how much heart and passion went into the project of that magnitude. Reflecting back on the process, was there a particular moment during the project's development where you felt a personal sense of fulfillment, just like you mentioned for the earlier healthcare project?
Yeah, yeah. A lot, many actually. It's hard to tell one, but I think all of the projects I touched base with, and I was roped in to be a part of. There was immense value that I could deliver, and I could feel it for myself. Like, even if
Mhm.
sometimes people could not feel it, I knew that, this is coming from my past years of experience, whether it is, and I believe that your deliverance is as good as your experience of life and experience of professional, acumen has been. So whether it is how fast you can turn around, how fast you can think through, how holistically you can think through, it all comes like that. So I remember there was a bottleneck in the Max Smart project, approvals at that time, and there was a third party involved, and they had committed a certain number of beds, but when we started to work on it, it wasn't going to be that many. It was actually half the number of beds, so we and because as a designer, I could work on that, on the software and everything. So I had to really put my point across in a very fierce way and literally fight it out, because the kind of conviction you have when you know the outcome of it, or you can see what happens is, in any business model, there is a business, there is a there is a product around which the business is. So in a healthcare sector, the hospital is the product, right, so to say. And so whether you can come up with 300 beds or you can come up with 350 beds is going to make all the difference, because 50 more beds means that much more revenue,
Absolutely.
so and then alongside of that, the interiors, when you do it, nobody, the services, everything we do behind the scenes in terms of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, everything gets hidden, because the interiors is what evokes the emotions. And when you enter, that's how you view the space. So there's a lot of onus that lies on architects and designers, and that comes with a lot of responsibility, commitment, and it's a never ending process. So I was able to, while doing, so when the new management took over, three and a half years down the line, there was a whole demerger, merger, and this acquisition happened. So
Mhm.
suddenly we had a fresh set of eyes on the table, and we knew that we had embraced ourselves for a fast track roller coaster ride, in terms of, because yeah, we knew that we were going to be expanding, looking at expansions big time. And so in one of the, and it was COVID times, when on a short notice something came, and I had to assess it and see the viability check, because there was a call going to happen between the top stakeholders. And so my boss gave me very little time, and I was like, and he had already by then given a number, like, we can, in this proposition, we can make up 275 beds. And I remember when I did my work, and I said that no, we can actually do more, so I came up with a number, like I said, that 350 to 320 beds, so 50 more beds. And
Mhm.
the idea was to make it 300 plus, if it's going to be a viable a proposition. So
Mhm.
it was something in Mumbai with a very good group, and that, so ideas like that. And then it's not that you have spoken, so it will be agreed upon. You have to back it with evidence, so
Absolutely.
obviously once you have, but the decisive time is very short, yeah. So within those couple of hours, you have to give a decision, and you have given that. Now you have to back it up with evidence. So you might as well make sure that what you have said, holds true, kind of a thing. It's not just a layman's number thrown in the air, kind of a thing. So that was a great, thing that came on the table. And likewise, when we were doing this Vikrant also, which is actually a plot that, a deal that got cracked between, the two entities. It was a huge complex of 2600 plus beds that we were talking now. So it was very important to know that how much are we going to fetch out of this land piece. So again, I did a lot of permutation combinations and came up with, 600 650 bedded number that we can fetch out of this land piece. And a lot of so all these things brought in a lot of value because I could quickly, do all those design pieces and massings and juggleries. They all came very handy. And not just that, even in the bylaws segment, the way you comprehend, so there was another project that was going on, and the way I could comprehend, the understanding of that. Sometimes in a close group, like one or two people, it gets hard to sort of, pass through. But when
Mm.
the same thing is put on a larger forum, or like, somebody is able to get the point, and it gets addressed, and it saves all the time and energy and resources. So back then, that time also I had put this idea that no, I think, we must deliberate more on this, and if this decision is made on the table, then that would mean, we go back 2 years to where we started from the approvals. And, this idea doesn't fit into it's a good idea, but it doesn't fit into the planning and the approvals we have got so far. So do we want to get into it? Like, politely putting your point across,
Great,
and then
great,
two, three
great.
more people will join in to say she is right, she has a point, like, so let's deliberate more on it. So I think that, and then also the other properties like Mohali, we were already 1.5 years into approval processes. Yeah. So suddenly what happens is that there's a new requirement that comes in, and you can't ignore it. Like, it has it is coming from big clinicians, and it will fetch business value. So the business guys would recommend something, and then the infrastructure, like, as architects, we have to see whether we can accommodate or not. We are already halfway through. How smartly can we accommodate it? So there was a Linac bunker requirement came, in a brownfield expansion. Whether we do it in the old building, then you have to break your head and say that no, you can't touch the old building. Now bylaws have changed, compliances would not be meet, fire norms will not, sort of let you go through it. So we don't have any option but to put it into the new building. And new building meaning you put it in such a way that your approvals don't hold on, and your processes don't stop.
Right.
Um, then there was required. So many places, like, it was actually, you should say that where is it that you don't add value? Because like I said, that, from designing to massing to bylaws to fire norms to so many things, like everywhere our role becomes very, very responsible, very, very value oriented. And if we are not putting value, then it's, a question to ourselves that what are we doing, like, in the
Absolutely.
journey.
Ms. Joshi, I mean, I can only imagine the kind of pressure and dedication that must have taken. It is fascinating to hear about the human aspect behind such massive undertakings. But having said that, Ms. Joshi, architecture can sometimes be a thankless profession. Yet
Oh,
you've led
yeah.
projects that have touched so many lives. What's been the most meaningful recognition or feedback you've received on a project, and why did it resonate with you?
That's a difficult one. That's a quite a loaded
Well,
question.
any one that you think of, or if there is none, you can only say that yes, I'm waiting for that recognition. And
No, I was going to say that all of like most of my projects, they were very well received, and they were appreciated, and there was a lot of applaud that happened around it. So picking one is difficult, but right from my consultancy days, the way clients would thank you, and they would really, you can see it in their smile. So I would say that whether it was the first cancer care center where the chairman personally, like, applauded all of us and appreciated us. It was the corporate office that got transformed from a very traditional looking office to a very chicken contemporary space, 3 floors, 50 square feet of area in 2 months. Like, it's really a turnaround kind of a thing. Even the new management, the same journey happened. Like I think the first project that the new chairman, Mr. Soy, inaugurated was the cancer care center in Gurgaon, which we were hunting for 1 year all across Gurgaon. But Vastu is a big thing for us. So ultimately, in lieu of time, we did it in house, inside the hospital, and he really liked it. And then the corporate office happened. He liked that, his own, and then during the process of, and now, after doing all of these brownfield projects, and interior architecture towards them, the last being Dehradun facility, where, the chairman wanted that, why don't we convert the atrium into a space which is, more airport-like, and we're utilizing the space instead of just skylight filtering, light with, and everybody nodded, yeah, like, and then nobody had any idea how are we going to make it happen because there are hard constraints, flooring, everything, no wet point. So when it came to me, and I just smiled and I said, okay, let me find a way, yeah, then since the one thing I learned early in my career was that everything is possible. Like, you just have to have the right intent, the right purpose, and the right methodology, the right mindset towards it. Yeah, so it was by the time the space came out, everybody was very happy, and we have like a WhatsApp group where, like, so you can see the appreciation coming through in small, big, every ways, in the way people respect you, they regard you, they want your opinion, they want to rope you in more and more projects, they want to know that, okay, what do you think about it? Like, should we,
Right, right.
all of that. So it is a way of, regard and respect that you have earned over the years. Like, and same for
Absolutely.
clients, like,
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it is actually rare for architects to receive that kind of recognition, especially when it is tied to such meaningful impact. You mentioned something about open space just a while back. Ms. Joshi, with the growing importance of wellness in architecture, how do you personally view the role of design in fostering emotional and physical well being, particularly in healthcare environments? How do elements like natural light, air quality, and spaces for relaxation shape your approach to creating spaces that support both healing and the overall experience for patients and staff?
oh, it is immense. It is immense. I mean, as an individual, as a layman also, you can't stay in a dingy place, or like, when you go to hotels, or you step out of your home, you want like abundant natural light, and you want fresh air, and you want to be able to, you want your sensory organs to feel calm and relaxed, and like, that is what uplifts your mood, that is what keeps you joyful, cheerful, and that is what life is all about. So all these requirements are, they are ingrained in our design process. Like, we don't have to think and do it. So like, when and especially wellness, like, there's a wellness certification also that, is sort of picking up, in lieu of the concept being growing so much. There are a lot of elements that impact this whole process of wellness, and enhancing patient care and medical staff's emotional, and because especially this work is very stressful, very strenuous, very very draining for the medical staff and nurses and everyone. So we have in all our facilities that we are coming up with, like, the Max Group is coming up. We are actually doing very transformative, brilliant work with some international designers, and even the national ones, like, Delhi based. So we are coming up with courtyards, we are coming up with open terraces, we are coming up with relaxation zones for the family to get together, like, some, of course, seasonal, like, not in scorching heat and all, but at least there are places being designed and carved out where, the family can have a cup of tea, or like, while they are waiting to get in, or like, to get out, there is a space which warmly welcomes them. The choice of materials is very warm, which keeps your sensory organs very relaxed, and you have to make some hard decisions, so you need to be very, very calmed and relaxed, and not anxious, and not getting worked out. So we are incorporating all of these elements in our design process: natural light, and integration spaces, and even prayer space, like, people who meditate and all, you need that. And also, in technical terms, like, there are various aspects, in the air quality. We use HEPA filters. After COVID, it became even mandatory that we don't
Right.
use the HEPA filters only in the operation theater, but we have taken it to the ICUs. There are negative and positive pressures being maintained. There is humidity control. There are air changes that happen, like, in different zones, different the ventilation quality. Everything has the air conditioning system basically is designed in a way, the filtration is three layered, so it is designed in such a way that it improves the air quality, the overall well-being of everybody involved in that area. And the natural light sort of helps you uplift your mood, and like, it keeps you cheerful, and you have to be very positive, and you have to be very relaxed to be able to recover fast, which is the
Absolutely.
idea. right?
Absolutely.
So all
Absolutely.
of these things are very, even the interior materials are low VOC, a lot of greeneries being plants in non-critical areas, So we have, like in a Mumbai facility, we are coming up with a courtyard which is very green. The vertical gardens are sort of traveling up. In our Lucknow property, we are coming up with a huge integration of green spaces. Even our landscape has water bodies, which helps you calm down. So all of those things are very well integrated in our design. So you will get to see that in our forthcoming projects of the Max Group, and it'll be really exciting to, for the customers to sort of see it.
Great, great, great. It is amazing. Actually, it is elementary, to be very honest, but it is also amazing that how attention to detail and attention to all of the importance that these elements would actually bring in to the entire design aspect of the facility. And it need not just be a healthcare facility. I mean, it may be essential in a healthcare facility, but I believe it is now more and more required in commercial spaces also, because you need people to be calm and relaxed and feel happy wherever they are. That's absolutely great, Ms. Joshi. Moving on, you've achieved remarkable success in your career so far. We have already gone through it. But looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the future? Specifically, how do you envision stepping into more boardroom roles, and what impact do you hope to have an organization as you continue to drive innovation in the design and architecture space?
That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about given it too much of a thought, I would say. I think as a person, I just like to keep growing. As a professional, I like to keep acquiring new skills and new knowledge. And like I said, that, since we as architects, we have already been taking care of all the environmental and sustainable, goals and CSR activities. And, a lot of our planning sort of goes into that. At massing level, we take care of a lot of these, wastewater treatment and, all of those things. So um, it becomes, it's like a whole cycle thing that, one aspect is, like I said, that the product model is being very well, held up. And then, there's a business side to it, which means that you have to, like, you can't design a thing without understanding what the business model is. So, the first question, like, you go to a doctor, you have to tell, what is the, the symptoms, so for him to be able to tell the treatment. So likewise, you have to tell us what is your business model, how do you plan to make revenue, and, in how much time. And, then we will see that what are the governance mechanisms, what are the bylaws, what are the amendments to it, what are the norms that will have to be taken care of. And then, of course, with the help of all these environmental, social, and welfare things getting integrated into it, it is but natural to sort of, when I saw this ad, that I said there is nothing to lose in this. Like, this is worth a spectrum worth getting into, and you are already halfway into it. Why not make it full circle? And, like I said, that you never know. So one thing I learned from my corporate role is that you have to be ever ready. Like, so you never know when that one call will come, when, your boss wants, or the chairman wants, like, that we have a meeting in tomorrow, or like, in the evening. So you have to be able to pull up all your experience and all your knowledge and sort of bring it onto the table in a very holistic way. So I see a lot of opportunity in this curriculum that, you guys have so brilliantly put up, to be able to enrich yourself in a way that, you are any which ways, whether it is acknowledged or not, it is any which ways we are bringing a lot of value on the table for the stakeholders in terms of, the product that we are doing, the compliances that we are taking care of, and the environmental issues that we are contributing to. So this is just the add-on layer to it that, makes it whole circle, that yes, we know about business also. And, in COVID times, I was just exploring, like, there was little time in hand. So I did this entrepreneurship course, certification from London Business School. So that got me really into the finance world, and, how P&L happens, and,
Mhm.
how to make sure that you are not just designing the product, but you are fetching good, returns on it, which is very important. So that is where I have stepped in, and I don't know where the universe is going to, how it will unfold. But for now, I'm happy to sort of enrich myself with all of this knowledge and curriculum and integrate it.
Well, the way I see it, it is clear that you're not only shaping spaces, but also paving the way for strategic leadership in the industry. Exciting times ahead, I must say that. Uh, Ms. Joshi, as architects increasingly prioritize sustainability, how do you integrate eco-friendly materials and energy-efficient designs into your projects? How do green certifications like LEED or BREEAM influence your approach to creating environmentally responsible spaces?
Yeah, that's a very, very valid question. In the course of a project's journey,
Mhm.
uh, certain things are good to have and certain things are mandatory to have. So all these LEED certifications, green and BREEAM certifications, the wellness certification, the sustainability curriculum, all of this is integral part of and especially a healthcare project. So in fact, the wave is picking up now, the buzz is picking up now more concretely. But we are happy to say that as a like the Max Healthcare Group, or even earlier when we were doing healthcare facilities, we were very mindful of all these parameters to sort of integrate well into the the planning and the development of the structure. So, for example, when you do, all these certifications, some things which come in very, the at the massing level, your rainwater harvesting, now the government is also becoming aware. So they are asking for a certain plot size, they're asking for a certain, bank size of reservoir for, to harness the rainwater harvesting. And, so that is one thing. Then waste management has become very concrete in terms of wet to organic to that churning has sort of segregation is going well, and then into compost, and that cycle is happening. Then there are there's always been this consciousness about lighting, so LED lighting and sensor based lighting, that is playing its part, and we are becoming more and more mindful about integrating it into each and every in as much detailing as we can. Sort of it saves you huge electricity bills. And with the invest of this spree of solar panels, which were earlier lesser in number, now government is giving subsidies, and people are, as much space as you can allocate for these solar panels, it is fetching you great results. And almost there was a report in Lancet, in fact, where it helps you reduce, there was a case study where it tells that it helps you reduce 50-60% of your electricity bills, all these things being put together, which is a huge cost saving to the organization. And in fact, to other industries as well. And water management. So we have been doing treatment plants where septic treatment plants where almost 80-90% of water is sort of recirculated. So it goes for landscaping uses, it goes for your WC flushing systems, it goes to the water chilled cooling towers, and then a bit of it also goes to the softman treatment plant, to be for reusable for drinking, and then some of it goes to the main sewer line. So all of those things and practices are being into place. Then water in the process of water conservation, those sensor based taps, sprinkler format, all of those things are beautifully getting integrated into the system. And there are other factors, like there's a point list which helps you. So we have been gaining gold and platinum standards on our buildings, and it is a great with great pride, the clients sort of talk about it. So all these curriculums and programs are well integrated into our design practices, and that is the way to go about it. Monitoring about it, there is a lot of BMS process that is put into it, so that you can monitor the efficiency of all these machineries that you are integrating the systems into. So with the advent of AI and all these high tech technology coming into place, it has become equally important for us to increase awareness academically about the functioning of all these processes, so that it can be maintained. Not just you have designed and put it into practice operationally,
Right, right.
the staff has to know how to operate it. That education part is also simultaneously picking up. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the integration of sustainability really is the future of architecture, if I may say so. Which actually brings us to the last question. Ms. Joshi, could you share your experience with Directors Institute so far? How has it influenced your professional perspective on leadership and governance in your field?
Yeah, I mean, what do I say? It's been a wonderful journey, and still on. But the starting has been good. So great compilation of content and material, and with how simplicity, you guys have collated the whole thing. It's wonderful. I have just a lot of praise towards it, and I, as an individual, as a professional, I'm learning so much. I'm in awe of it. With every module, I'm like, okay, tick, this is tick, and this has enhanced my knowledge, and this is taken me to another level. I anyways a little bit put into the trading industry like all other people are. So the IPO formulation and the exit and the shareholding, and all of those things are getting added on to my knowledge umbrella, and it is helping very well, whether it is risk mitigation or educatively awareness, or integrating the frameworks, the compliances and bylaws, and the business intelligence part of it, because the more knowledge you have gathered in yourself, it only enhances the business sustainability for long term, and the value addition in terms of cost cutting. So I think I forgot to mention that one point, when we were doing Max Healthcare project, the Saket Smart project, because of all this knowledge, when it comes together, the parking norms had changed,
Mhm,
so these bylaws keep changing. So, there is a direct impact of any which ways the bylaws are very different in different cities, in different states. So Delhi
mhm.
has the highest capitalization, which means a lot of space, cost, energy, everything goes into these fulfilling these parking compliances. And when they changed, we got a leverage in space, and I thought, let me just cross check it quickly that how much we are able to save. And after my analysis, I actually went ahead and told the management that why don't we reduce one basement. So sometimes some decisions can be very tricky, that nobody wants to talk about it, but with my pursuance, I said that no, 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 and then you put it in the right forum, so the decision becomes very quick in terms of why not, so how much are we able to save. So
Mhm.
the quick thing is the quick calculation was, three stack parking you reduce on it was a 1.5 lakh square feet of footplate, excavation, D-wall, RCC. It was almost 23, 25 crores of saving.
Wow.
So in a project of a magnitude of 600 crores, maybe it's a small amount, but the power of one thought, the power of one idea, that brings in all the value that anyone can sort of say that, yeah, this is meaningful, why not. So I think this course has put a lot many feathers in my knowledge base, and I feel very enriched, and I feel very thankful and very grateful to you guys to be able to initiate this forum where such stalwarts and such industry leaders and seniors and veterans can join hands and take this forward for the future generations. And it is just a way of giving back to the society and leaving an impact, which we keep any which ways are talking about, the environmental, social, and wellness. So this is also a legacy we are going to be leaving behind for the generations to come, and what a knowledge base that they can, sort of pass it on. So thank you so much, and it was great talking to you.
Sure, sure. It is great. It is great to hear how such experiences are shaping your leadership, Ms. Joshi. And with that, we conclude today's insightful conversation with the distinguished Ms. Lavleena Joshi. From her innovative contributions to architecture and design to her strategic leadership and commitment to sustainability, Ms. Joshi's work continues to shape the future of the industry. Ms. Joshi, thank you for sharing your invaluable insights and experiences with us today. It has been an absolute privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, we hope you found today's discussion as inspiring as we did. Stay tuned for more thought provoking conversations in the future. Until next time, take care and continue to build a better world around you. This is Rajesh Joshi signing off.